Welcome, St. Louis Syndicate fans. I'm Nate, he's Brandon, and we are here to share with you our picks for the NFC North. Brandon, did you put everything into ChatGPT? We were just talking offline about AI and, how much AI can impact our businesses, how much AI can impact overall betting.
Yeah.
And have you taken a look at it and put all your draft picks into AI yet?
And so far, tortured it around when I'm actually going to do it again later tonight and see if it's gotten any better because I got to make picks for the Masters. So I tried last year and it was not able to scrape betting data very well, odds and stuff.
It's
They're
getting
sitting
better.
out of
It's getting
but
better.
it's getting better. So I'm going to take another stab at it as soon as we get done recording and see if I can find some edges of the difference between where player values locked in a couple of days ago and what the market has evolved on. So that's the plan for later tonight. But no, with football, I've just been staring at this draft board, trying to decide where I think stuff's going to go and where I think some of the professional prognosticators might be wrong. So we'll see if we can figure that out.
So I got to ask, have you checked out the latest Sandman feature, Sandman Edge, which if you sign up for it, you get a free trial, and it is AI. I wonder if I'm gonna log in right now.
I have not gotten deep into it yet.
Fixed. Let's see. They have golf. They have golf, Brandon. They do. Boy, let's see here. Masters tournament win predictions. Ooh, AI's firing it out. Pre-tournament, live in play, value bets, matchups. Dude, you got to check out Sandman Edge, man. Sandman Edge is where you're going to have to get it all done right here.
I'm very interested to see where that takes us come football season.
I love it.
Because I haven't went and started poking around yet because I'm not quite a golf better as much as I play in some of these pools and try to find an edge. I'm very interested to see when we get around to football season, something that that stacks up against some of the models that we've tried to use over the last year or two and see where they differ from each other. I'd be quite interested.
I think you and I got to come up with our own model and test it and see if we can beat the Sandman Edge model. I think that's our goal. And to do
that's definitely going to be the goal.
To do that, Bill and Eric, you're going to have to give us some free passes for the season to Sandman Edge so that the St. Louis Syndicate can try to beat it. And we'll throw a rankings board up there for you guys, and you can, keep a scoreboard of it. Did the Syndicate beat Sandman Edge this year in picks? I'm willing to go head to head with it. Your AI system, I think we're smarter.
That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
But to do that, he's going to have to give us free subscriptions to it. So just saying.
Well, that would always be a plus.
It's for research.
But, yeah.
I will say this: my picks, my man on my picks, the AI guy's right with me, right? I had Scheffler in, I had Rahm in, I had Rory in, I had Xander in, I had DeChambeau, I had Ludberg, I had Tommy Fleetwood, and that is 8 of the 9 guys that they have there. I did not have Cameron Young. They've got Cameron Young, so I'm gonna have to watch this and see if the Sandman Edge produces. But enough about AI and Sandman Edge. I need to hear some real analysis from Brandon on the Detroit Lions. What are we going to do this year, buddy?
So, interestingly enough, as we go through the North this year, we probably recognize that this has been basically flipped upside down from where it was the previous year.
Yeah.
We came back. We thought, hey, Detroit, I think a lot of people were probably reticent about Minnesota going from a veteran quarterback, regardless of what you thought about Darnold coming into the year, to a rookie, and then Green Bay and Chicago. And we basically flipped that upside down. So we ended the season with Detroit and Minnesota at 9-8. Green Bay only slightly better than because they got themselves a tie. And then Chicago running away with the thing. So, Detroit finishes up the season 9-8. We are going into this season right now staring at a 10.5 win total.
Yeah.
That's shaded just slightly to the under. And so I think, the betting market is kind of looking at this and going, even though this is a pretty successful division that everybody's got to play in, that we think that Detroit is going to find a way to bounce back. And interestingly enough, I hadn't really thought about it because of the way that this division played out. But Detroit ended the season ranked as the 8th best team. They were ranked at the 3rd best offense, but they had the 25th best defense.
Wow.
So they kind of fell apart there. That they had the 7th hardest schedule. Their offense still executed, but because of the injuries that they had on the defensive side of the ball, team kind of fell apart. So I think, we went out, they kind of reloaded. David Montgomery left. They went inside, I'd say, Checo. We went out, picked up a new center, defensive end, cornerback, linebacker, try to kind of circle the wagon here and get some new blood in for the defensive side of the ball and figure out, hey, how do we kind of take a step forward and avoid having the same problem that we ran into last year? Now, in my mind, I think a lot of it comes down to variance. I don't think that their defense the year before, when they almost went to the Super Bowl, was necessarily that much better.
Right.
They maybe executed a little bit better, but the offense is the thing that always carries them. So you got Goff, and you got Jahmyr Gibbs, and you got Amon-Ra, and who's their big old tight end? Man, I always lose that guy's name. Yes, there you go. Laporta.
Man.
So Detroit, by going 9-8, they've got the 17th pick. So one of the things that jumps off the page, right, is their left tackle left. Yeah. Taylor Decker had been their left tackle for a long time. He's out of there. And so from what I'm, kind of seeing, and what makes a ton of sense is they're going to have to go left tackle. You got to protect Goff. You got to keep the offense going where they're going to go. And it looks like through their signings and their re-signings, they're focused on keeping the defensive players in place. And I guess hope that Campbell can kind of coach them up and kind of avoid some of these injuries. So it seems like what I'm seeing slotted by a lot of people is Monroe Freeling coming out of Georgia.
Yep.
That seems completely reasonable to me. You need, obviously, if a better, higher rated offensive lineman starts falling, you're going to be looking at that. This one, it seems like the X's and O's guys kind of look at it and go, he hasn't had a ton of career starts, but that, there's a lot of talent there. They think, middle of the first round, obviously, you're not going to get those top line guys that have the pedigree. So take a shot with somebody that's got the talent and see if you can get something out of it. So I tend to be in the same line there that, as you guys have seen, as we talk through this, I'm a big, both sides of the ball, the line being an important anchor. And when you lose your left tackle, you got to go find a way to fix that and quick. So this seems like a good way to do it. Hopefully they don't bust here. They're kind of taking the path that New England took last year, where they went out, they grabbed a guy, and his arms are a little short. And then, seems like it panned out up until he got injured and then kind of fell apart. But they got all the way to the Super Bowl. So maybe Detroit can kind of pick up on the same sort of good vibes, is get a talent first guy and hope that keeps them ahead of the ball there.
Yeah, very critical for sure. I really like Detroit. I hope their window hasn't closed. So, Brandon, yeah, I absolutely think that the Lions need offensive line and defense, as you say. I do think they're still kind of on the upswing, but they're running that out of time. That window is closing for them.
That's for sure. Goff, they're going to live and die off Goff's back when it comes down to it.
It's a tough thing right there because
Yeah.
he's shown that he can do it, but he's also, I'm not sure he's the guy that can get you over the hump. Though we all thought the same thing about Sam Darnold last year.
That's true. That's true. I just don't know if Detroit has the capacity to stack talent around a quarterback in that fashion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hell, we might find out that it turns out Darnold is considerably better than Goff when he has a coach that can fully use what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unbelievable. So the Packers are the next team on this list. And it's funny to talk about the Lions and the Packers behind the Bears and the Vikings. But honestly, the Packers had a 9-7 in one season. They were that tied team. They didn't look as well this year. The problem with the Packers that I see is we have a team that's 9-7-1, projected 10.5 wins on the market currently. And I hate that number. Right now, I'm all on the under here. Mostly, they don't have a first round pick. They gave that to the Cowboys for Micah. Mike is out until at a minimum mid-season with this knee, and he may never come back quite right. I hate it because as a Micah fan for many, many years, the dude is uber talented, but sometimes injuries like this can derail you. And if you're not a specialty position like a quarterback or a receiver that doesn't get hit a lot, I mean, he's in the trenches. He pushes off of his legs and knees a lot. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to come back than some of the others. So for the Packers, they may have got the short end of that stick when it comes to the overall draft capital, losing that first round pick. They don't have anything to show for it today. And much like other teams, they need offensive line. They need to protect what they've got going on there with Jordan Love. They have some decent receivers. They've got a couple of nice tight ends in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrove. They actually look pretty good in general. But where they're lacking is that defensive line, and now they have edge depth issues without having Micah available to them. And when Micah's not available to them, the edge depth is not great. And they're also missing out significantly in the defensive backfield. And you have to have some defensive backfield help when you're going to play these teams now, the Bears and the Lions. They've got wide receivers running all over the place. And that's not to mention the Vikings have two excellent receivers and a good tight end as well running all over the place. So the need for the Packers outside of protecting Jordan Love is getting a safety and getting some corners that could play into that coverage. So that's kind of where the Packers are needing to be right now. The problem is their first pick is 52. So they're way down the list. And I did a little bit of research, and I don't even have a great player for them to take at 52. That's just not even an option. But to tell you a little bit more about their departures, they lost their tackle in Rasheed Walker to Carolina. They lost Emmanuel Wilson to Seattle. They lost Romeo Doubs to New England. Quay Walker to Vegas. Malik Willis, I don't know if it's a great loss or not, but he did go to Miami. They lost a corner in Nate Hobbs, went to the Niners. They lost Rashawn Gary. They traded him to the Cowboys. They lost Colby Wooden, traded him to Indianapolis. And they haven't signed anybody. They signed Zaire Franklin, and that's it. They really didn't go pick anybody up. So this team, to me, Brandon, they're not going to win 10 games. This is an underplay. It's one of those that as I've gone through my research here early in the season, I think I'm going to make an early season play on them on the under before they go, have a really good draft or sign somebody that could maybe make that number adjust, or everybody else goes, oh, wow, their draft sucked. They're not going to get to 10. So this might be a play right now to hurry up and go take the under. So I just talked a lot. What are your thoughts on the Packers?
I end up in the same spot you are with the under. I see the high end, the Jordan Love that was leading his team to a bunch of wins and into the playoffs and explosive wins in the playoffs as the outlier part of this. That I don't I don't know how you take a team that is structured this way and get it to the next level. They kind of went like, oh, we're kind of doing the wide receiver thing again. And then they didn't really pan out. Maybe they're
No.
beat up. It's always injury things. Like, it's always the Packers. Well, this guy's kind of beat up. He doesn't practice. Always trying to go, you know, and Love, to his credit, kind of holds certain games together. But to me, it's kind of in that same pocket of issues that Detroit has that you go, hey, if everything works properly, you're just trouncing people.
Yeah.
But as soon as something isn't connecting, then it's 3 and outs, it's the defense falling apart, it's all of this shenanigans. And so to me, I go, they need a bunch of stuff to shore up like the high floor. That there's not so much variance available to them, especially if, hey, everybody in their division is trying to get better. There's nobody here that's just like, hey, what if we just kind of screw off this season? I mean, they, by margin, have the highest collective over under of the year
Yeah.
for that division. So I think Green Bay ends at the odd man out.
Yeah. 100% agree. You can say all you want about living on tradition. You can say all you want about love. At the end of the day, they're playing in a tough division. This is when we get to the AFC West. We're going to talk about that a little bit also, where everybody's coming to
Yeah.
play. And this is one of the better divisions in football from a talent perspective, from a coaching perspective. I would argue that all 4 coaches in this division are top 10 coaches in the league, top 12 at the minimum. I mean, these guys are good.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not the guy in Minnesota, but I mean, I don't know. Arguably, they're solid.
Yeah. Yeah. As much as we like to kind of bag on a couple of these, I mean, LaFleur is a guy that, like, when it starts to not go good,
Yeah.
even his fans turn on him quick. I think it's just because of that haircut, to be perfectly honest. But, like, he does go down that road of, like, when it starts to not work, it does seem like he makes it worse. So, yeah,
Agreed.
but either which way, 4 coaches that have found ways to be successful in the way that the NFC North wants to be successful. But something's got to give. And to me, when you line this whole thing out and go, hey, we're going to put Detroit and Green Bay at 10.5, and we're going to put Chicago at 9.5, and we're going to take Minnesota at 8.5. We'll jump into Minnesota here in a minute. They also worry me, obviously, because they went and got a boom or bust quarterback, which again, I kind of leans directly into this, where it's like
Yeah.
Love is kind of boom or bust. Goff can be boom or bust. I think we're going to end up where Chicago looks like the stable team of this division when it comes down
Yeah.
to it, which, I'm happy for the Chicago people out there. They've had a hard enough time, dealing with the last 40 years, but it's odd when you go, we're going to go get this rookie. He's a little questionable. We're going to get a new head coach. And then a year and a half later, you're like, well, maybe they're the stable team that kind of has the higher floor.
In
But
the NFL,
yeah,
that's all it takes, though, right? I mean, that's all it takes in the NFL, Brandon, is a coach who's got some reputable history, a solid quarterback, and a couple of nice wins when it counts.
yeah,
Which used to be
yeah.
LaFleur. That used to be LaFleur.
I'm perplexed by how we got from. I guess perplexed is unfair because Jordan Love was never the guy that jumped off the page to me. It started working, and everybody just went like, look, hey, it's working. So that being said, I think it's time to jump over to Minnesota, talk about another 9-win team from the North last year. So, so Minnesota finished up 9-8, the same as Detroit, and they are being looked at as an 8.5 win team. So, we went through the JJ McCarthy experiment. Presumably, I guess that's over. When we look at signings here, we'll see Minnesota actually went out and got themselves 2 quarterbacks in the offseason. They got Kyler from Arizona, and they went and got Carson Wentz, who I don't even completely think I didn't know he was still around, to be perfectly honest. But I guess
Didn't
he's hanging
didn't
out.
didn't Wentz play for them last year until he got hurt?
Did he?
Yeah, remember he took
Maybe.
a beat. He took a beating, and then when JJ was out,
Uh,
and the only reason
that's
I think it was
yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah,
whole
yeah.
big thing where Wentz he was better than JJ, and they were like, "Oh boy, what are we gonna do with this?"
Well, that I don't remember a situation like this in the past where a team went and grabbed, fairly average national champion
Right.
and tried to, center their entire team around him. It's a very weird scenario. And it kind of made me think that KOC had some sort of idea. And, you hate to just, the internet likes to just go like, oh, the guy got too big for his britches and got out over his skis. And you go like, I mean, maybe, but more than likely it's something other than that. If the internet can figure it out, that probably means it's a little more complex than that. But they do seem like they've backed themselves in a weird position where they just, set an entire year of Justin Jefferson's career on fire
Yeah, which is
and
bad.
are now staring down the shot of, again, an interesting scenario where you take a guy like Kyler who has had wild flashes of competence and then at other times looks like he has no idea what's going on. And,
Right.
with a team like Arizona, it's hard to tell exactly what that problem is other than just rolling it up to the team's not very good. Kyler's probably not as good as, sometimes he can, flash. And sending him to Minnesota with a plethora of wide receivers seems like, at the very least, it'll make for some exciting drives. I just, I don't know if you can make a guy that is that size successful relying on his athleticism. When it comes
Yeah.
down to it, like if you're that size and you're Russell Wilson and it's, hey, we have path for the offense to work a certain way and he lives within that structure where Kyler really, it seems like the only time he's successful is when you just, let him improvise and just do
Absolutely.
what he can do. And there's something to be said for giving a guy like that a wide receiver like Justin Jefferson, and that maybe they figure that out, but it sounds unlikely. And it seems like the betting public books are hinting at that, where we're going to make them a half game less than last year, which is already a not very successful scenario. But when you look at the way they finished up the year, they won their last 5 games after losing the 4 previous games to that. So just a full on whipsaw. And the interesting thing is, again, kind of the opposite of what Detroit looked like. They were rated as the 6th best team when we got to the end of the year, on the back of having what was rated as the 3rd best defense. Which,
Yeah.
look, we all look at it, and Flores has these things that he does that really messes up certain teams and then just doesn't work at all against some others. So again, I don't know, if you can take that to the bank and go, hey, we're going to have a fairly or potential high ceiling offense. And then you guys are just going to play really hard nosed defense. I don't know if that exactly mixes when you start going down the road of maybe getting somebody defense stuck on the field more than they should be. I think is really what it comes
Right.
down to is, are we going to be able to get them off the field and the offense be able to hold and burn some clock and let them catch their breath or not?
Yeah.
You know, we're going to find out exactly, going into this draft, what they're looking at. One of the things that has happened here in the offseason is they released their longtime safety, Harrison Smith. And
Yeah.
it seems like the consensus among the draft knowers is that replacing that is probably the way to go. It seems to make sense to me. You already have a defense that works this way. You're taking a lot of chances on the offense. Shoring up the defense makes a lot of sense. So what I've kind of been seeing as we get closer here to the draft is slotting in somebody like Dylan Thieneman coming out of Oregon. Seems like he has kind of that repertoire that works in a Brian Flores defense. So for me, that seems to be the way to go. I don't see a lot of other departures on the defense where you can maybe lean on that and, bring in the high end recruit on this side, fill in the rest throughout the subsequent rounds, and then let KOC try to bolster what Kyler has been able to do for flashes and see if you can get that offense, higher than 13th next year.
Absolutely.
Personally, I don't think it works. I mean, I think again, you'll have these fun flashes where a good team goes into Minnesota and you get to bet against them because you have an inkling that Flores is going to confuse the shit out of their quarterback. And those will be fun bets to win. But I think more times than not, I don't know about Murray just going out there and trying to stretch the field with Jefferson. Where's your head at with this year?
I, I love that they're bringing in Murray to push McCarthy. I still kind of like JJ McCarthy. I think I saw some flashes from him at the end of last year that made sense. But Murray's going to
Yeah.
push. Combined together, they might have something, but some famous people have said you have two quarterbacks, you have none. So, they're going to have a clear decision out of camp this year who's the leader and they're going to stick with. I think you'll find um, Addison and Jefferson are going to lean towards Murray because he's a little bit more of a proven veteran, and I think they're going to like what he brings to the table. I think the same as Arizona found out, though. He doesn't do his homework, and he is susceptible to injury because he's just little.
Yeah.
But I think you're exactly right in terms of the defensive back piece. Harrison Smith's loss is going to be pretty big. The problem that this division has is that they're all loaded offensively at receiver and tight end, and they're not as strong as the division as a whole in the defensive backs. They're all looking for the same thing. I think it's so interesting, right? We talked about this the last division we went over. They were all looking for offensive linemen because they were facing some tough defenses, right? I think it was the South, right? And the Jags have a good
Yeah.
defense, and the Colts have improved, and the Texans are one of the best. And I mean, you look at how these divisions are faring, and I find it interesting that they're all kind of looking for similar things, which is really odd to me. And I almost wonder if that's an outlier we need to think about is who's best equipped to counter the best the other division foes bring, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that does. That does. That has been a fun thing about Minnesota having Flores when Green Bay's really high flying and Detroit's really high flying the last couple of years. And whether Minnesota was on the upswing or not, you knew that you had this little thing that, like, hey, when your high powered offense comes into Minnesota, there's a better than average shot that him getting to watch your team twice a year for several years now, he's going to have something to screw up whatever your game plan is. And so, hopefully we still get to lean on that and that, they turn over the defensive backfield. Flores just gets right back to where he was and they can anchor the team with that. But that's never really what you're thinking about. When you think about Minnesota, you go
Correct.
like, oh, they got Justin Jefferson. Hey, let's stretch the field. Let's be this high fly. Let Jordan Addison play in the dead space that gets created by having a guy like Jefferson on the other side of the field. And then, sometimes they add in having a good running back or, this kind of back and forth that they've done the last couple of years of like, do we have a tight end? Do we have a running back? Are they as good as we want them to be, sort of thing. But if you could put together the third best defense from an analytics standpoint, you can cover up quite a bit of stuff right up until you get locked on the field for too long and you just wear out.
Yeah.
So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see when they go from, hey, you know, part of what seemed to work with Darnold when he was there 2 years ago was that it wasn't, hey, we're gonna take long shots or we're gonna burn out. It was, hey, we're gonna kind of make our way down the field. I'm going to use Jefferson for the intermediate sort of thing. And we're gonna have some of these longer drives that allows the defense to regroup and come back at full strength. And I don't know if Murray or McCarthy can provide that sort of stability on the offensive side of the ball now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a path to go. When I think about these three teams, none of them though right now are probably up to match what the Bears have. The Bears are really trying to define themselves as a class of the North, which they've never been. It's always been the Packers or somebody else. And when I look at what the Vikings have and what the Lions have and what overall the Packers are bringing, the thing that the Bears have that they don't is excitement and youth and talent all mixed into one, right? They're excited about their team in Chicago. Ben Johnson, man, he's crazy watching his videos and how hype he's getting his team. Caleb's young, Adunze's young, Loveland's young, Luther's young, Manungai's young. I mean, I'm like, these guys have potential if they could gel to really roll and do some damage. So it was kind of fun taking a look at what they've got and where they're coming from and where we think they're going to end up actually. Now, does this seem low to you that the Bears are projected at 9.5 wins, knowing what we've just learned about the three other teams in the division?
It feels low to me. It does. Like
Nine and a
I
half
don't
feels
know
low.
why. Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't be able to at least match what they were capable of doing last year. This seems like a team that's on the upswing, that has the
Yeah,
coach, that has the quarterback, that, probably could use a couple more pieces on defense
yeah,
and, could probably use some of their young, skill position players who get a little bit older. That usually comes with getting more successful. I
yeah,
don't, obviously you can have the step back, that you see from young quarterbacks sometimes. And that may be baked in here to a certain degree. That you have your season where you really, okay, you got to some percentage of your potential. And then everybody
right.
sees the tape, and the next year there's a little more struggle. And then you grow from that. So, that could be a situation that we see. But outside of that, I feel like matching the 11 wins seems like the highest probability for me.
Even 10 better than 9.5. I
Well,
mean, I
yeah,
just
even
feel like
10
9
gets you
and a half is
there.
low. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, once again, for our gambling friends who want to place futures, that's definitely an area to take a look. And I agree, you're spot on. And I think the bear strategy has to be, and they're talking about it, right? You can, in doing the research, they need defense. They need front seven help. They need defensive tackles, safeties, edge depth, and they need secondary depth. They're struggling in all of those areas. I'm seeing maybe some noise around Emmanuel McNeil Warren, the safety out of Toledo, because he's like this monster. He's like a really big guy, 6 something, 6'4", 200 some pounds. I mean, his information at the combine was off the charts. Yeah, he's 6'3.5", 201s. He's got this huge vertical, and he's got a 4.52 speed. He's grade 90 out of 100 by Todd McShay. And he's just the right kind of guy that if he's there would anchor that Bears defense. And exactly as we just talked about, another team in the North that wants to build their defense because that has been the weak part of the entire area. So I think that's probably the target. And I even read a couple of pundits that said this is a prime spot if they think that their guy, this McNeil Warren, is not going to be there, that the Cowboys would be a likely trading partner for them to go up to the 20th spot, take this guy, and the Cowboys trade back a little bit and get some, additional picks, which is what the Cowboys would like to do probably with that 20th pick after they've already taken one. Still have another one in the first round and then get some more. I know this is about the Bears, not the Cowboys, but it all comes full circle when we're talking about these things. So
Yeah.
100% agreement and all of that. What are your thoughts on the Bears? Anything around them specifically that interests you outside of that 9.5 number?
I think I think going and getting another young guy that's a physical freak is fits the culture that they're trying to put together. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that seems like the kind of thing that on top of it fitting what they need and, that whole like logical part of it, going into it and going, here's what we do. Like we're playing big, we're making big plays, we're, being energetic. We're trying to bring, you know, I don't know, an energy to to the field. This seems like a great way to bolster the back end of your defense with another guy that assuming that all of this, you know, projected talent shows up on the field, being this
Right.
size with this kind of wingspan and that kind of speed can just be another guy on the other side of the ball that's making wild plays and is keeping the energy high. So to me, it seems like whether this is just wish casting from some of the guys that put together these mock drafts or it's starting to, reporting to come out of the team of where they're focused, this seems like a tremendous fit for them.
Yeah. One last thing to note, if you're a Bears fan, you should be extremely happy right now because you have 3 of the top 60 picks. You could really come out of this if your team does its due diligence appropriately. You could come out of here with 3 strong defensive players in this draft because not everybody is going to go after defense. Where there's a lot of guys that need offensive linemen. There's going to be a couple receivers and running backs and quarterbacks taken. And if you look at the top 2 rounds, 64 guys, right? Knock off the bottom 4, you have 3 of the top 60. There's a chance for you to walk away with 3 impact starters on defense for the Bears. And to me, that just says 9.5 wins is too low. Do you trust the Bears drafting?
Yeah.
Well, they did okay with they did okay with Luther, they did okay with Rome, they did okay with Loveland. So they're at least assessing talent that's worked in the past, and I'm gonna say that's projecting forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like they're on a bit of a streak of doing the right things. So it it leads me to believe that, as much as I want to temper it because of all of the times in the past where it seems like Chicago's starting to gain some speed and then everything falls apart, that, hey, maybe they figured out the right thing. And maybe it's not going to be this year. And maybe, you see all of a sudden it gets put on tape and they have a 7 or 8 win season and we get flashes of fun stuff. And then, we depress that win total going into next year. And
Yeah,
that's where they can really flourish. But it seems like they have all of the core pieces that are necessary to turn this into like a true, swing at being good for a while.
yeah,
So, the long term, it's got to be a play on the over.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a pretty good assessment overall. I think the Bears, just giving a quick recap, Bears are tops heading into this year, probably will remain there. Expect a bounce back season from the Lions. Expect some positives out of Minnesota if they can determine coming out of camp who their quarterback is and stay healthy. And if the Packers can stay healthy, they can contend, but they seem to be looking right now at the team most likely to not win 10 games.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
don't think
I
the
would
Vikings
I would
will
tend
win
to
10
agree
games
with
either.
that.
So
No,
that's
no.
kind
I
of
mean,
what
I
I
could
heard today.
definitely see this being a, 11, 10, and then like 8, 7, sort of win structure here that like I don't see any of these teams like bottoming out and being like 5-win teams or something like that. But
Right.
I definitely think that I can't imagine us getting anywhere near the 39 wins that the division is being projected for today. Like,
Yeah.
I think 3 of them
That
are
seems high.
probably gonna go under.
Yeah, that feels
Yeah,
pretty high. We'll see how this plays out.
yeah.
So anyway, Syndicate fans, there's another video release for you. We've got 2 more divisions to cover, and then we're heading into the draft. Looking forward to that. Be sure and check out Sandman Sports. Be sure and check out the AI tools that are available to you and start thinking about how AI impacts your life and how the syndicate's going to put it in its place this year when we do our picks. So anyway, Brandon, I'm Nate. He's
Yeah, we're
Brandon.
coming
We're the
for
St.
it.
Louis Syndicate. Have a great night, guys.
There's